All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Natalia Willette. I'm the real estate and estate planning attorney here in the state of Florida, and we have an amazing guest with us today. Her name is Sonja Palomino, and Sonja is a financial budgeting coach. So Sonja makes sure to get your life in order the way that you want it for the goals that you want, but she's the person to coach you and guide you along the way. And she has agreed very graciously to be here with us to provide some amazing advice for 2022. So that's why this video is called Bonus Budget Blessings for 2022. We couldn't be happier to have her here. Her website is www.enjoyconsulting.com. That's enjoy, INJOY consulting.com. She's got a great link there. It's a work with me button. You can find it in the upper right-hand corner. It says how you can get a complimentary 30-minute consultation with Sonja so that you can get your life arranged the way that you wanted for the goals that you want. So Sonja, without further ado, please bless us with your knowledge and wisdom.
Oh my goodness, Natalia, thank you so much. It is my favorite time of the year because it is a little crazy. It's the holiday time. And there are these elements of, I wish we would have gotten some things cleaned up as we're getting ready to close out this year, as we're getting ready to head into a new year. And there can be a lot of overwhelm. There can be a lot of disappointment as we're trying to check those things off the list. And now is a very crazy time to kind of take some time and attention to think about that. But what I love about this time of year, it's so perfect. So we can reframe that. When I work with my clients, and I've personally conducted over 13,000 consultations, I have clients all across the United States and Europe and the Bahamas. And so for my clients, especially at this time of year, I just let them know, let's not think about what you didn't do, what you didn't accomplish, right? In your 2021, I'm just thinking we're going to get ahead of it before 2022 hits. So that's why it is really my favorite time of the year. I'm passionate about working with clients, quite honestly, that are tired. A lot of my clients are tired. They're entrepreneurs. Everyone gets everything else from them. And the time and energy that they have to dedicate to their own personal finances, it's pretty limited. My clients are secretly feeling anxious, and they're longing to have this, it's almost like this sense of margin in their lives so they can pay their bills without stress and worry. And when I work with my entrepreneurs, especially when income can be variable, the first thing that I hear is that, Sonja, they'll be the first to tell me that I can't budget. And what I'll let them know is that actually budgeting for you is even more important. And I have this process, it's called like a reverse engineer of a budgeting process, because where a lot of people just stop in this budgeting process, they feel like they don't have very solid income projections. So what I do, right? And so what I do, I basically take income completely off the table, because it doesn't matter to me what you project your income to be, because it may happen, it may not, right? There are ebbs and there are flows. Though what really is important is for us to know and really set this proper system, so that way we know what are your day in and day out expenses personally and also for your business. And how do we tie those holistically together? So I feel like that's a missing piece for a lot of my clients before we start working together. And Natalia, if it's okay, it is.
Yeah.
And if it's okay for me to take even a step back and kind of share a little bit about my background and where I came from to kind of why I'm in front of my clients this way.
Yeah, please. Let's share. I find it that it's really essential when I communicate with my clients to tell them a little bit about my story as well. And so I think they would definitely benefit with learning about you and where you came from.
Thank you. Thank you. I used to work and it was in the corporate world. I made pretty good money. I made about $70,000. And I woke up one morning, it was at year 10, and I felt dead to my soul. And I really thought I was going to retire with that job. And it was like a light switch overnight. My heart was checked out. And so I just knew it was time for me to leave, but I didn't know the proper time. And it ended up being 2 more years that my company went through layoffs that you were not supposed to volunteer for the layoff package because they could just fire you for free, right? And I just knew that was going to be my way out. So I left at year 12. But the really sad part about our story is that when we had my income coming in, my husband's income coming in, we should have not been in debt to begin with. Though when I left that corporate job, I was a project manager. When I left that job, we went through the process of almost losing everything. We almost lost our home. We had credit cards maxed out to the point that they were mailing us notices saying, we're not going to loan you any more money. And because our debt to income ratios were out of whack. And so we hit our rock bottom. Everything was on the line. I had my second child. She was just a baby. And it was like this perfect storm of everything that kind of hit us all at once. And so my motto when I work with my clients is let's just go back to the basics. Let's just do simple over and over. Really, nothing should be complicated about this. But we had to right size our life in order to align with that dramatically lower income coming in. And so it took us, it was between 8 to 9 years from hitting pretty much rock bottom. It was 80 degrees in our house in the summer. I'm joking. I'm not joking. You can ask anyone in my family.
That's tough in Florida.
Yeah, it is. And the thing about it is, of course, we didn't have cable. We went back to bare basics. There was a birthday for someone that was close to us, not someone just in my daughter's class. We're eating peanut butter and jelly mac. I mean, it was bare basics. And so it took us, it was between 8 to 9 years for us to completely transform that. We, within that period of 8 to 9 years, not only did we pay off our credit card debt, we then also paid off our mortgage as well.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, it is. And we think it was about $135,000 of interest we didn't pay to the mortgage company because we paid that off early. That was with the $70,000 reduction of income. So it's even sadder to think about what we could have done with that income before that happened, but we didn't win the lottery because we don't play it. My parents thankfully are still here, and we didn't get an inheritance or anything like that. But we had to once again go back to the basics, create a really solid financial foundation. So I would love to share that with your audience because that's what transformed our situation. And what I find is that most people's budgets, it's a kind of sort of halfway budget because 95% of Americans, they don't have a budget, but even the 5% that do, it's not at the level that I'm going to share with you today.
And I am so looking forward to it. And I know that our viewers, clients, people that just enjoy the YouTube channel for getting information and getting some value, they're going to find that this is going to be so transformative. First step to transform their lives, because when you are either running a business or thinking of starting a business, it is so important to budget adequately, but to have something to look forward to as a result of your commitment to your budgeting. So please, by all means.
Well, and I think I know for me, when I would hear the word budget, I would just immediately think straitjacket. Like okay, it's going to take all the fun, it's going to take all the joy out of my life. And what I learned is that actually not having it, having that income coming in and not really kind of spending those dollars on paper on purpose before they hit the bank, that actually was the straitjacket to come out of fantastic income and to be on the other side and just be up to your eyeballs in debt. I couldn't get to the next raise fast enough, the next commission fast enough, the next bonus fast enough, because I would spend it twice. I would spend it when I knew it was coming, and I want to spend it again when I received it. So then there's the birth of debt right there. There's your problem right there. Yep. So what I find is that the best way that I have to share it with you is through an analogy. When was the last time, Natalia, you were sitting at a stoplight and you looked over to the right and you're like, oh my goodness, Sonja, that person is in that vehicle. There is not a steering wheel. Their hands are actually taped to their sides. There is not a front windshield, and there is not a rearview mirror. Have you seen that on the road?
No.
And we live in the country. We live in the country. I don't see that here either. But the thing about it is that what I find is that we are driving our financial vehicles just like that.
Yeah.
Right? And so the very first thing is that we want to, in order to insert this steering wheel, and this is the stopping point for basically most of an entrepreneurs, is that the steering wheel, it is a paycheck by paycheck budget. So if I'm working with someone and they get paid every Friday, that's the steering wheel. That is the structure. That's how we're going to kind of create that structure to put their hands on the steering wheel so they can gain control. They're going to think about their budget in terms of an every Friday paycheck, or the first and the 15th, or every other Friday. Though with my entrepreneurs, that's not the case. There isn't typically a paycheck coming into them. It's based on cash flow. So what do? There's a solution. And they're actually two different, my clients fall in two different categories. With some of my families, the entire family income is very variable. And others, they're married and the spouse has consistent income, but then the entrepreneur doesn't. So they're kind of two different scenarios. Well, what I recommend for the families that income is 100% variable, I artificially put them on a structure. And being an entrepreneur, the beautiful thing is they get to choose the day of the week that they want to basically set as their pay period, is what we're going to call it. And the way that I ask for them to select that, it's what day of the week do you feel like you would have time and energy to just to tap into, to dedicate to looking at your finances. If Mondays are crazy because you're getting caught up with emails and phone calls from the weekend, Monday's probably not a good day. If Friday you are absolutely exhausted, probably Friday's not a good day. Maybe Wednesday. But you get to choose, right? Because there isn't that consistent paycheck coming in and we're not dictated. So we get to create the structure and be creative, follow your energy, and when's going to be the best time for you, your work, and also your family. So I artificially put my clients on a weekly budget in that particular case. And it's a weekly budget based on the day that they feel that they would have the most time and energy to look at and dedicate to basically reviewing their budget and their finances. Because the truth is, every single week we're having to make financial decisions based on income, based on expenses, and it's always variable. And there can be dramatic ebbs and flows in income. So that's the first thing for my clients that are entrepreneurs, 100% entrepreneurial income coming in. If it is a married couple, and if there is a paycheck from a spouse, then I recommend mirroring that pay structure for the entrepreneur as well. So that way we can look at the personal finances and also the business finances. We can compare apples to apples. So if the spouse is receiving a paycheck on every other Friday, the business, we're going to set up an artificial structure every other Friday as well. So because we want to be able to align the personal budget and that business budget. So when we look at those bottom line numbers, we can see basically what's going on, not just for the personal finances, because with a lot of my entrepreneurs, it always feels like every time they're turning around, they just need more money, right? And they're not far enough ahead of the curve. So that's going to be my second recommendation. We'll get into that in just a moment. So the very first one is, we can't just have a budget for, let's just say, your overall month of whatever, because the month is too long and we're going to get lost in that month. I have clients that receive Social Security, right? Or they have retirement. Let's just say it comes in around the beginning of the month. Even for them, I break it down so it's not just an overall budget for the overall month of, it's the 1st and the 15th, let's say, because it allows for us to get a better pulse as far as where they are, because life can happen in the midst of a beautiful budget. Life will happen.
That's part of the freedom of budgeting, I think, is like, you also budget to prepare for those contingencies in life. And then you have that relief that, you know, something is like allotted for that as well, in the event that life throws something at you.
Absolutely. And that's a transition, right? That's a transitional piece too, because a lot of times when clients are coming to me, they don't have that margin that I was talking about. They don't have that margin in their lives. And it almost feels like there's so much fear, there's so much anxiety, there's so much overwhelm, there's guilt, there's shame. And it's almost like they feel like their chin's at water level and they're just trying to, keep pace with everything that's going on. And it feels like their businesses are running them. Their businesses are ruling their lives, and they're not in that proper ownership position with that company.
I'd have to agree 100%.
So we can't stop. We can't stop with the steering wheel. The next thing is this. We want to insert that front windshield. And so the way that I recommend that we do this is that we want to have a budget that is forward looking over the next 2 months, because the next 2 months are going to be different than the past 2 months. And are we going to be able to predict everything that's going to happen over the next 2 months? Absolutely not. Though our goal is, and we pretty much know about 80% of what's going to happen, right? And it's going to be that 20% of life. It's going to, that it will ebb and it'll weave its way in and out. Though when we can get our arms around the 20%, around the 80%, that other 20% that kind of is weaving its way in and out, we get to build and we get to tweak and adjust, but it's not as if, you know, we're just throwing spaghetti against the wall, just hoping something is going to stick, because that's very stressful not to be on the front end of that.
Yeah.
So what I noticed with my clients is that when we're able to insert that front windshield and have a budget that is forward looking over the next 2 months, personally, and also for the business, because we know when the cell phone's due, we know when the internet is due, right? We know those business expenses. There will for sure be variable expenses. Though when we can at least lay the foundation for that 80%, what it does, it allows for us to then take a look ahead, and I call it paycheck by paycheck or pay period by pay period, whether it's weekly or the structure that we talked about moments ago. Mm-hmm. When we're able to look ahead over the next 2 months, and we literally can look at those bottom line numbers to see what is coming up personally and for the business, and we can tie into the actual business budget, we can tie and bake into the business what the personal budget is going to be asking in advance. What it does, for the very first time, my clients, they have goals for the business.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Because yeah, without that, you're just guessing and you're just going to feel behind. So that front windshield, it allows for us to change that position. So we are running a company and we look at the bottom line numbers and we can see exactly what their goals are. Because if we have a goal to bring in X amount today or tomorrow, it's actually too late. We needed to see that a couple of weeks ago, right? Because our funnel isn't going to turn on a dime. We want to be able to plan and prepare for that. So that second recommendation, it's a game changer. It's about being proactive rather than feeling reactive. And when we can become proactive in our businesses, we just tend to, we stand a little taller. We walk into a room a little differently. Our interaction, it's lighter, it's fun. It becomes this adventure in a game rather than we're just really surprised every day and we're checking that bank balance and we don't even have any sort of capacity to know what we want to ask of this business. And there's something that's quite amazing that opens up. And I don't even really have words, honestly, to describe what happens with this part of the process, because there's something magical that opens up. And when we're able to look ahead to see in advance holistically what that business goal is, just by us knowing what that number is, where I'm not writing my business goal on my mirror in the morning and looking at it, and it has nothing to do with that. Literally, I just glaze my eyes over my numbers. I don't even put much thought to it. And then I'm back to my life, right? Because the whole point is so that we lay this out properly, so we get back to life, we get back to our families. It's in I have another client and she said, you know, basically it just gave her back so much time and so much energy, because once you lay this thing out the proper way, then we don't need to spend a lot of time on it. So it's going to free up my clients so that way they're able to, you know, basically get in, check in, and then they basically know what those goals are. And so that's really the second piece, is to have that forward-looking front windshield. So that's pretty cool. We have those two pieces, but just like when we go to the grocery store, like, do you just use your steering wheel and your front windshield and not the rearview mirror?
No, you definitely need to be able to look all around you and know where you stand. It's just
you got it.
Uh-huh.
You got it. Because, right, what's coming at you through that front windshield, what you see coming behind you through that rearview mirror, it's going to change how we're going to adjust that steering wheel. Yep. So we can get those 4 tires on the road, right, and have a strong strategic financial foundation. So this last piece, this was, I think it's the secret sauce. I think it's the secret. Because when I first started coaching my clients, I would ask them, Natalia, I would ask them, how are you doing with your budgets? And this is what they would say. They would say, well, we're doing well. But you know what? In my gut, I didn't know if that person was secretly struggling and they were just lying to me just to make me feel good. I didn't know if they were really rocking it, right? And we needed to like bake a cake and celebrate. I didn't know. I didn't have the pulse. And coming from that corporate, project management experience and really having my pulse as far as what is going on, I did not feel comfortable. And it was pretty early on. My company, I started it in 2007. And so it was a middle of the night awareness that actually woke me up in the middle of the night. And it was this. I didn't hear a voice, but I just felt it kind of in my spirit. And it was, Sonja, you are missing the rearview mirror. And I was taught literally in that moment that rearview mirror, what this piece is, it's this taking this budget that typically it's hypothetical, it's floating out there, it's something scribbled on a piece of paper, or we're pulling it together in an Excel spreadsheet, but it's gathering dust. It's not living and breathing, and it doesn't have the pulse. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's essentially it's like you're on a road and you're looking in this direction, you're holding this in this direction, but you don't know where you are because you can't see what's behind you either. So you don't know where you are on that path. Is that a good way of explaining it? Yeah.
It is. It's beautiful.
Okay.
And especially if you're an entrepreneur, what's happening through that rearview mirror, that's the income that you've just received. That's the cash flow. That's what your current bank balance is as of right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so the rearview mirror piece, it's taking the budget that is typically, it's not grounded. It's not grounded in reality. So we're basically taking this budget, we're grounding it, we're taking the budget, we're looking back over that prior week or two based on the structure of the budget, and we are reconciling that budget to the actual bank account. So also, Natalia, for my business owners, what is an absolute flippin' rat's nest? It is this. It's accounting, it's taxes, it's the numbers, right? And so I was working with a client, and she had owned her business for probably 17 years. And I asked her, so how are you doing, with your, before we started working together, how are you doing with your company? And she's like, Sonja, I don't know. I've not met with my accountant yet. And so I was like, okay, so how often do you meet with your accountant? And she's like, once a year. And so you don't know how your business is running day in and day out, right? And so as a natural byproduct with this last piece that I'm going to share with your audience, like I said, it really truly is the secret sauce, because we have to have the pulse as far as where you are anyways to make good, strong strategic decisions. And it's by the way, we're also creating this system to create your actual numbers, your actual income coming in, your expenses that are going out, the high level categories, because when we file our taxes, all the accountant cares about is what's your income and what are your different categories for your expenses. If we don't reconcile the budget to the bank account, it's just muddy and murky, and so it's just a beautiful streamlined process. Like I said, it's like an by the way. We're going to, of course, have beautiful numbers. Like by December the 31st, you could be on the phone with your accountant with your subtotals and ready to rock and roll taxes before your accountant's probably even ready. And we have a simple system to set up, your receipts. And it's just, I got audited back in around 2012. And the thing about it is everything was so aligned, and it was so lined up, and it was just actually a piece of cake. So the thing about it is this rearview mirror piece, it's really, really important. And I don't hear anyone else talking about it. And so it's about reconciling the budget to the bank account so we can put our weight on it. It will lean back to us, and it will give us, and the budget will actually speak back to us and give us decisions for that particular moment that we're in. And so it's a living, breathing budget. So when we can insert that steering wheel, that is a budget that's paycheck by paycheck, even if it's artificial. We have that front windshield. We're able to look ahead. And even for the things that are the larger things, like to your point, the larger things that are going to happen that are, let's just say, property taxes or insurance, or that you want to replace the vehicle, or we don't need to wait to start to think about those things. We can actually start to dream a little bit in that budget as well. So the budgeting process is not just on the absolute bare basics, because what I find with my clients, the clients that when they come to me, they're coming to me chin at water level, just barely bringing in exactly what they need when they need it, like at the last minute kind of thing. It is just as easy to transition that just a little bit. So we are on the other side, and we're on that proactive side of it. So we can start to bake into the process some goals. But what I find, Natalia, is that my clients never get to those goals. They're just at chin at water level because they've not put a stretch in the budget, if that makes sense. They're like, okay, this is what I barely need to make. And then what we tend to find out is that you tend to barely make that. So it feels very uncomfortable to actually layer in future goals. Saving for taxes, right, is a perfect another one as well. Yep. But it's very uncomfortable to layer in these other bills, which are not the bare basic expenses, but we want to be able to see that. We want to see how it all sprinkles down to the bottom line numbers, which then translates into the goals we're able to see proactively. What tends to happen, then things start to open up at a different level. It's not 100%, but it is overall, the pulse is we tend to get there versus not. So it's almost like it's the difference between, driving this financial vehicle with 4 tires on the road, that it's paycheck by paycheck, it's the front windshield, it's the rear mirror. We're on the interstate going 70 rather than those back roads that we're trying to, maneuver our way back from Thanksgiving vacation on those dark, windy roads that you're talking about earlier.
Yeah, and it makes so much sense. And it's something that having the right person guiding you, having a coach is so important. People ask me, because I have a lot of investors that ask, should I have this type of entity, et cetera. And it's more like, who do you have along your route to guide you, to help you figuring out, your financial projections, to help you figure out your legal needs, your tax needs, right? Because you have to have proper tax planning, your insurance, all those things that come into play, along with the management of your company. And part of making sure that you have a business that is successful is having real, tangible goals that you've put down, that you've written down on paper, that you've put into a budget. Like these are the numbers that I need for my life, and that I need for my business, and that I need for my business to grow. But seeing those numbers really be there and creating goals to get to those numbers starts with budgeting, in my opinion, because you have to be able to see it and see the big picture and understand how it affects you personally on like your personal income level, how it affects your spouses, your significant other, your children, right? The goals that you have for them, and how that's going to give you the drive and the motivation to do what needs to be done in the business to get to those numbers consistently, and to get to that consistent growth, to get you to the next stage of your next goals over the next quarter or so. So 2 months is great. I always think of it in terms of maybe about 3 months or so. I don't go beyond that when it comes to project designs either, because seeing it just enough far out and knowing, okay, I have a general idea of what's going to happen over the next 2-3 months is brilliant. It's very hard to start seeing longer term, okay, 6 months out, 9 months out, 12 months out, because you don't have so much control over what's going on. Maybe it's not planned out, maybe it's not calendared out. And so doing that along with checking weekly or every other week on your budget, and is it matching, what you've set out? Are you doing the things that need to do? Brilliant. It's exactly what I do. I look at my company financials. Certain ones I look at daily because of Florida bar rules. But for my business planning and strategy, I look at it weekly. I have a specific day of the week that I do it, the day that's easy for me, just like you were saying, the day that's easy for your clients, like the best mental day for it. So those are all excellent pieces of advice, and it really does make you successful. It really does. It works. So thank you so much for those 3 wonderful pieces of advice. Is there anything else that you'd like to share before I let you go and encourage everyone to reach out to you that's thinking of making their business better or starting their own business, and making 2022 far more of a blessing than a burden.
Well, absolutely. And in pretty much everything that I just shared about that structure, it's fantastic. It's amazing. We want all those pieces. And that's about 20% of the equation, because the other 80%, that is the ebb and the flow. It's the cash flow. It's coming in. It's not now. What do we do? And so then those are the puzzle pieces that we kind of maneuver, and we can manipulate in that budget and press pause or press go. And that's where we kind of pull those things together. And so the last thing that I would like to share with you is just from this perspective, because because I'm a budget girl, I love to get my hands on someone's budget. And what I also find is we also have to be very careful with the budget as well, because we can tend to get sucked into the budget. We can tend to get sucked into what those numbers look like. And those numbers, although they are numbers, once again, we want to put you in that proper position of control. Those numbers are simply guidelines. They're not dictating to you where you're going. We want to be in control of that. We want to get on the right side of that. And so basically, it's this budget process. It's a way to dream, to open up and expand as well. And then I really like to lean into, okay, what more is possible? Because if we simply create a budget around what we think we are able to accomplish, we're going to put a glass ceiling over our finances personally and also for the business. The budget is not in the right position at that point in time. This budget is our tool so we can open up and expand. We can truly walk into that, what more is possible, and especially thinking ahead to 2022. Really, we have this time to be able to do that. And the budgeting process can be just a really amazing tool in that as well. So we can bring these things that are kind of up here in our minds, but we can actually bring them down and we can ground them. We can put our hands on them. And so we can just make them real. So that's my passion. That's where I get all excited. Time just literally disappears when we do this. And so that's pretty much it, Natalia. I just want to light a fire underneath your followers, underneath their feet, so that way they're excited, they're energized, they're motivated, versus feeling overwhelmed and as if they just don't know how to figure this out. They've just not been taught the proper system is all. And those are the key elements that I shared. So go rock it is what I say.
Yes, and everybody can improve their systems that they use, whether it's just for personal or business or both. Everybody can improve and have a much better 2022. So please, if you know that you need help with your budgeting, and all of us do not hesitate to contact Sonja Palomino, Sonja at www.enjoyconsulting.com. That's INJOY consulting.com. She is a delight of a human being. I absolutely recommend her for anybody that wants to improve their financials for 2022 and beyond. And if you want to get started now, get started now. It's always better to get started now than to wait, right? Thank you so much for your time, Sonja. It's a delight. I look forward to creating other videos with you in the future, because I think your brain is incredibly valuable, and what you have to share is, just something that the community needs. And I'm so happy for your time. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much.